Culture consciousness and movement building MILPA, cultivating change makers.
Watani, again, thank you so much for being here with us for the MILPA show and just joining us in the 831 in Salinas, right? And you've already told us about yourself, but for the folks that may not know you, please feel free to introduce yourself to the audience. Specifically, you could touch on where are you from and what lessons kept you hopeful during your upbringing.
Well, I was born in Houston, Texas, during the Jim Crow South. Came to California when I was 7 years old. So, so I've been mainly in California. So I guess that's the introduction about my background.
Yeah, and then what lessons kept you hopeful during your upbringing?
I think it was two things. One was my family structure. We had a pretty tight-knit family. My grandmother was sort of the ruler over the family, and she had a lot of moral. I grew up Catholic, in the Catholic family. And I think what kept me hopeful was that, my religion and the family. My religion in terms of being a Catholic in the South. So I learned a lot from my grandmother. I learned, the basic do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's as a youth. And I think that carried me all the way through even when I came to California.
Thank you so much for sharing. And for a lot of folks at MILPA who have been formerly incarcerated, system impacted, that they've been through really difficult moments, this question came up for those folks when we were planning these questions for you, right? What inspired you to get involved in the struggle for social change and liberation?
Well, for me, I have to go to California when I came here. Like I said, I was 7 years old when I came. What really inspired me when I was a young man, I was just got married, and there was a revolt that took place in 1965. They called it the Watts Riot, but it was really a revolt, and didn't really actually happen in Watts. It was in Los Angeles or the South Central area. And when that took place, it caused me to pay attention to things that's going on. I remember, because I grew up in the Jim Crow South, that I remember what that was like, but I didn't have any idea, or a lot of idea of what was going on. I just thought that maybe that's the way the world was supposed to be. But with the August Revolt, it caused me to start questioning a lot of things. So it woke me up. But that same year, there was a person by the name of Deadwater who was shot and killed by the police. Pretty much like, what sets off a lot of things throughout our history in terms of police killing, and then it being deemed a justifiable homicide. When that took place, and this person, Deadwater, was driving his pregnant wife to the hospital, and he was speeding, and he was stopped, and he was killed, and it was, deemed justifiable homicide. Well, that caused me to really stand up and started looking for ways that I could, resist this system, how I could fight back. Like I said, I grew up a Catholic, so being a Catholic, I had a different way of looking at the world. But once I saw that, I was angry, and I started looking for an organization that I could express my rage, and that I could channel my my energy in. And so that was the spark. That was the spark that made me really start looking for an organization that I could become a part of, and that I could, be a part of a movement that would bring about racial and social change in this country.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate that a lot of times it is violence that activates people and wakes them up, but at the same time, what has kept you motivated during those dark hours of uncertainty, whether it was in the movement or whatever other experiences you had?
The motivation, I think, is my understanding and realization about history and what's gone on before us, and that, because a lot of times we look at things that happen, like what happened at Wash that sort of woke me up. We look at it as being something that just emerged out of a vacuum. But once I started looking at keeping me motivated, started looking at history and seeing that these things have been reoccurring, and that there was other people, the shoulders that I stand on and that, my people stand on, that have sacrificed so much. And and so I felt that it was an obligation as well as a responsibility for me to find a way that I could also resist those changes. I had a thing that usually when I go and I meet young people, I usually try to set the mood by saying something. I used to say that whenever we gather, we must always acknowledge our struggles for justice in this country. Let us honor first the ancestors, the messengers, and the openers of the way forward, the freedom fighters, the self-sacrificers, who taught us by their mind-opening words and exemplary action how to understand and to assert ourselves in the world. Let us also pay homage to the memory of our ancestors and the struggles they gave their lives to. Until freedom, justice, and reparations are achieved in this country, everywhere is our battle line, and every day is our call to struggle. And I do this to set the pace, the intention when I speak to young people, because that's so important, not to think that things just emerge out of a vacuum, that there's a history to it. If you know the history, it removes the mystery. So for me, it's remembering those things and knowing that, there was other people who sacrificed so much for so long. You even see today that, the police killings and the things that's happening, the assault on voters, voting rights. I mean, all of those things are people have fought the same battle that we're fighting back then. And if I forget that, then I sort of shirk my responsibility of it. So I become more and more committed to the struggle for the change in the world. So this keep me motivated, and keep me motivated in the sense that. What I'm seeing now, because I'm an older person now, when I was doing this, I was 20, but I started when I was 18. So I was young during that time, and what keeps me motivated is young people, realizing that they are our future, and that young people, it's no way we can get around that. The sadness that sometimes come over me is what we left with young people. How we are putting them in a position where they have to put out fires that they didn't start. So what kind of contribution can I make to young people? How can I be, like last time I called myself a freelance elder, not ceremonial elder. You can't just call me up and just do that. But I mean someone who tries to connect with young people, and that connection is not just me talking to them and telling them things. So I can talk about the 60s, I can talk about the glorifications of, the science and all that, but I also like to share some of the mistakes that we made so that young people won't make those same mistakes. And that's, that to me is important to share, not as a pathology, you talk about all the negative things, but as something that can motivate them, and that if they make mistakes, they're going to make their own mistakes. They're not going to make the mistakes that we make, and the only way we can do that is to continue talking with them, because for me, like the 60s, that was a time when young people all across this country were, for me, was breaking through racist barriers. We were opening up closed doors of opportunity, and we were raising critical questions about the unequal distribution of power and wealth in this country. So it was a time where, we were on the move. I mean, I got a sense of that when after George Floyd and the whole Black Lives Matter movement. I see my kids running out there, and they got signs and stuff. I have people who were in the movement back then, older now, got kids, and their kids out there. They calling me up and want to know, man, I'm a little nervous. My kids are out there, in the streets, and they're concerned. It was, I don't say, it was just, I don't know how to describe it, but listening to those stories about their kids, it reminded me of us when we were in the streets and we were moving, we was making the change. We didn't always listen to our parents. We were, we wanted to make change, and listening to that for them, that reminded me of that. But I get hopes. I get my energy and my inspiration from watching young people. That's one part of it. Another part I get inspiration is women. I mean, this is something like the movement I grew up with was basically male dominated. They had, not dominated in the sense of presence, but they were women doing a whole lot of work. I mean, they were doing majority of the work in there. And I'm not saying this to put one or the other, but after I got out of prison, I see women challenging, men, raising some really questions. Don't care about your feelings. I mean, if there's a question that need to be addressed, they would raise those questions. And it was a different feeling for me. I mean, it felt good, but it felt like, wow, this is different. Way different. And maybe because I've been out so long, I didn't see how it emerged, but I just saw it. The meetings I go to, I see a lot of women in conjunction with men, but I see a lot of women that's being more assertive, in their stance, being, critical when it needs to be critical, and they're, so for me, that's the two. One is, seeing the amount of women, and I have daughters, so I know that. So I know the exchange that go back and forth, and they be drilling me, and we, it's amazing though. But I enjoy it, and that gives me hope and gives me inspiration. So women, I said, and also young people in general, because young people are the ones that's gonna bring about these changes. They're the ones that are, that's gonna see things that we didn't see, and we can't expect them to do it the same way that we do it, but we do expect them to, take the baton and move it. So.
Yeah, and that actually leads into the next question of what do new advocates, organizers, and that might mean young people, right? Because people are getting involved younger and younger, which is good. But what do they need to know?
Well, there's probably several things. I think, and this is what I'm offering. Well, first of all, history is important. They definitely need to know history. They can't think that this is something that's new. They need to connect it. They need to know what the history, because like I said, you have to have that historical perspective in order to understand where you are and how to move forward. That's to me, that's one important thing I think they do. And I think that they need to, find their passion and to drink from the cup of humility. Now, finding their passion, I mean that, that there's so much happening nowadays, in the world. You have the environment issues, you have, food, you have, the racial issue. I mean, there's so many things that there's really no excuse for someone not to get involved in some kind of way, whatever the capacity. So I think that's one thing they need to do. The humility part, I raise that because I think that humility allows you not only to be able to share your story, but also to listen to other people's story. And I think that if I have to make another critique of the movement of the 60s, I would say that humility piece was missing. Maybe that's something that young people just don't have, but I know it's important by looking at it, because if you don't have that, it's easy for, and I do a lot of talk about the FBI and COINTELPRO. If you don't have that, it's easier for the FBI to move in or to disrupt organizations and stuff. So that's important. Storytelling is another important thing. I do a lot of storytellings to different universities, different students. I like that, because once you connect with people on the storytelling level, you get to know them much better than all of these theoretical construct and stuff. That's why I like to talk to high school students more than university students, which is, you know, good too. But the high school student, they ask the most difficult questions, and they have no problem in stating how they feel and how they see the world and how they want to make changes in the world. So I hope I answered your question too about.
You did, and you provided so much context. And I think the biggest thing that you mentioned is, if you don't know your history, it remains a mystery, which is kind of stuck to me, right? But what gives you hope these days in the movement, in your daily life?
I think well, it's in the work that I do. Like I say, I'm now in Oakland, the Bay Area, where when I got out of prison, that's where I landed, and I get hope by connecting with young people, you know, and seeing the work that they are doing. Because if we just focus on the media and what they want to present to us as being what's happening, we lose sight of the people that's really doing the work. And I've come across a lot of young people that are doing the work that really gives me a lot of hope. Right now I'm at a place called Canonical Farm that's in East Oakland. It's an intentional community, and you have young people there, you have formerly incarcerated, you have all these people all trying to bring about change in the society and world, self-society and world. And those things are happening in many other places, not just there. You have, forest food, you got gardens of so much food. You just give away to the community. Every time you get a house, you tear down the fence. So it's just, things are moving. So seeing this is happening in MILPA, seeing what the work that, that MILPA do, I'm so grateful to be a part of it, of this journey. That gives me hope. I mean, it gives me hope. It sustains me, and I never really, if I get tired, I rest, but I don't give up. And that's important, because there's a lot to be done. And you can see what's going on in the world now. There's so much, that needs to be done, and so much we need to, to resist. Because that's, and each generation has that responsibility. It's, to me, I look at it as being like the virus, this virus going on, and that, each generation, has to provide, the booster for that, or to keep going, because it just keeps mutating into something else. You can see from the plantation, the enslaved plantation, to the prison plantation. You can see these things are happening, so that's one thing. Unity is another important part of this, because there's so many, they have so many different groups. So how do you unite with the groups? How do you maintain the unity? In the 60s, we had something we call operational unity, where we would, unify with a lot of different principle unity. Unity in terms of, some of the guidelines: mutual respect, mutual interest, mutual support, and then also mutual benefits. And those are some of the ingredients that we used to use back then, because, and I raised that because I'm consider myself a COINTELPRO survivor. I went through that, and I call myself that because it gives me a broader range of explaining what happened. I don't want to exclude them, and so I need to do that, because this COINTELPRO is still operating, and it could seep into organization and disrupt organization in all kinds of various ways if you're not careful. Divide and conquer is still there. So for me, that's really important. So.
Yeah, and before moving on to the call to action, I just wanted to revisit the first question so that you can just expand on it. In your own words, who is Watani? What does Watani mean?
Well, Watani is a Swahili name that I received back in the 60s when I joined the organization. It means one who is flexible but does not break. I use Watani all my life, since I came into the movement. So that is my conscious name. I also use Stiner, Watani Stiner. And Watani Stiner, I use that because I wanted, after I came back, it's another story, from exile, after 20 years being in South America and came back, I wanted to have a dialogue, a conversation with people of the movement back then. I've been out a long time, so I couldn't challenge certain things. I couldn't have a conversation. I couldn't be involved. I couldn't be with other people and have this conversation that about the past and stuff. So Watani is something I use, but I use Steiner to say that I'm back, and let's have this conversation. It's not this Watani over there, that's Watani, it's Watani Stiner. That name there, because in our organization, we don't use the last name. The last name is the saved name, so we got rid of that. And I got rid of it when I was in exile, but I brought it back. Well, he brought it back too, but I brought it back in my writings. I tried to make sure, because I wanted that conversation. And I've had many conversations while I was in prison. So that's how I got the name back in the 60s. I've carried it all the way through my life, just Watani, and I just added the Steiner after I came back, because I wanted people to know that I'm back, and let's talk.
Let's talk. Beautiful.
When you get up in the morning, just how does that look for you? Like, what is there something specific that you can't go a day without, like reading specific books or just anything in general like that?
Great question. Well, I have a pretty good daily routine. I think my focus, what it should be, is completing my memoir, which I've been working on for 15 years, maybe, coming back. So that's one thing. Like I told you, I'm living at a place called Canonical Farm, and that's a pretty good place to be for me, because it's a place where we have high school students that come in, and I get the chance to tell my story and listen to their stories. People from Bishop O'Dowd and St. Mary's, and they come. So I have a full routine of just interacting with young people, plus the community, learning about different things that people are doing, the things that they're planting, the collaboration they're doing with Earth's, Earth's Abide and different organizations, being able to, to grow stuff and provide it for the community, visiting with the community, checking on them. And, in the house that I'm in, there's a house called Sister Waters. It's a house of formerly incarcerated. 4 of us living there. And in that place, we have a lot of ideas we wanted to try to set up for people who get out of prison that can come, and we can, not just them, but also their family. And I've learned so much dealing with my own children after I got out that, it's something that I think I can share with them. So just trying to provide that space so that, that we can have this dialogue and this storytelling and this conversation going on in the place where I'm in. So my day is full. Like I told you before, I was thinking about, I got to learn to say no, because I'm moving too fast. But then, like I was sharing in the car, all of my, people that are my age are dying off. So I figure I don't have that much more. I have less years ahead of me than behind me. So I can't stop now. I have to keep going. So I just took that off the table. I'm not saying no at all. I'm going to work, but I still have to finish my memoir, and that's what that's part of I try to use that as part of my meditation during the day, is trying to finish that memoir. And like I said before, I'm glad I did not finish it while I was in prison, because I would have missed so much. There's so much complexity to it, and I've learned so much since I've been out, and I found out that it's the stuff beneath the surface that's really something, and I'm intrigued by it. So it's almost like I'm writing another book when I got out. Maybe that's why I'm taking too long, or that's my excuse, but that's something. So I have a pretty full day. I mean, I like my day. I like getting up. I like talking with young people. I like going places. I like when I just went to New York with MILPA with Fred, and that was interesting. I'm learning. I'm learning so much, and so that's my day, and I'm here. So that's my day.
What time do you get up, and what does that morning routine look like?
Okay, well, first I was in a habit, because when I was in prison, I was getting up at 5:30, 6 every morning. But now I get up around 7 or so. Got to have my coffee. I need to kickstart. And once I get that, I try to line out things to make sure things, don't clash. Like sometimes I have to go to LA, or if I have, students coming to Canonical Forum, then I have to set out that time and that day. I'm invited to, I've been doing Zoom since the pandemic for a while, but now I can move out a little bit more. So that's what it is. And then the other time is really having dialogue with my kids, my children. So much that I thought they knew that they don't, and they're now coming into this consciousness now, and they're curious and they want to know, what it was like for me in the 60s. They understand why I went to prison. I was surprised that they didn't know, a lot of stuff they didn't know. So having conversations with them, it's been rewarding for me, just being able to, to interact with people. So that's my day. Get up in the morning, coffee. If I have something to do certain days, Sundays or Saturday, I go there. They have people that come through there. A lot of young people going to the climate summit, and they'll come by and stop by, and we, give us, we give them the blessings to go on. And when they come back, they report what happened there. There's some people that go to Standing Rock. I mean, there's people doing a lot of stuff. But the beauty of it is that we all come together. Like in the house that I'm living in, it's myself, another guy named Troy. He's got 4 of us living in there. And all of us are doing work outside of Canonical Forum. Different, like I said, I go do some speaking there. Another guy working with All of Us Are None. And so people are working. And then when we get together, we share those stories. And if we need some assistance, we can call on somebody. If they got an issue over there, say, man, so-and-so got a problem, we need to have a circle. So we'll call them in there, So, how we can be supportive of each other. And so it's definitely not a dull time, not for me. I mean, I like what I'm doing. I like what I'm learning, and I like what I'm sharing, and that's been my thing. So that's my sort of daily thing. It can vary in terms of days of when I got to go and where I got to go, but I try to keep it kind of full, but also allowing a little time for myself. And I say that comes from the writing. The writing takes me into a whole other world. When I write my memoir, I can go back to South America, go to different countries. I could try to figure out things that I'm learning about this whole. Let me just share this real quick about charismatic leadership and what that's like. And in my writing, I find that I've come across a lot of this charismatic leadership, and I have a lot of questions too about how someone can be immersed in this. I was in the organization, we had a charismatic leadership. I was also, and I also know about Huey and the Panthers, those kind of leadership. I went to South America. I got stories about Jim Jones and what that was like, and the people around there, because I was in Ghana then. They had another group called the House of Israel, with this guy that made himself a God, I guess. And also when I came back, I was in Miami, Dade County Jail, Dade County, and I met the guy that was in Ben Yao. Anyway, it was another group, Yahweh, and that and then listen to the story. So it's just something in there that raises my curiosity. Not just the leadership itself. They can have the oratorial skill and stuff, but their followers and how they are attracted to that. And then you can see that now with what's going on with QAnon and all this other stuff. So, yeah, I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, you did. And for our folks that actually are currently incarcerated or have been formerly incarcerated, what words of encouragement do you have for them?
Yeah, I try to give them some hope, even though it's kind of hard to have hope in a hopeless situation. Mine is, I always try to draw from Malcolm and the people who've gone to prison, Mandela, and and what they did in their, during that time, and because prison provides that space where you can really be in touch with yourself. You can learn. You can ask all kinds of questions. So it's just for my thing in terms of hope. That's something that that people have to hold on to and to know. And again, it goes back to history, because you don't know anything about Mandela or the people who've gone and what they have accomplished coming out. That's one thing. But the other thing is just prison is definitely a hopeless place for people, and I saw so many talented young men that's there that that's found a way of really realizing their potential. They found a book. They become this amazing, like I say, mathematicians and historians, and they've been sentenced to life, life in prison or long times in prison, and that's not something that's really been helpful, and I'm not arguing, for prison, and that prison, should be is a place where you should go and get rehabilitated. I don't believe that, because the traditional understanding is that, you get broke in society and you go to prison to get fixed. And then you go back to a broken society, because the solution is just like the problem. It has both a personal and a social dimension to it, and it requires transformation on both. So if these things were provided in the community, then prison would be obsolete to a lot of young men that's in prison. So so my message to them is to not get caught up, and it's easier said than done in the prison politics. Find, as I said before, find what your passion is, because I saw people that, become this like amazing artist, or musician or whatever, but it's always, some way that you can find hope in a desperate situation, because I was there for 21 years, and I know what it is. I've seen young people who really become some amazing young men, and they've been trapped into this web that that eats our young people up.
With that, what is your call to action? And that could be for anybody, for the young people, for any folks out there, but what is your call to action?
Yeah. Well, for people who are out, in society, I would say that, that because, first you have to recognize that there is a problem, and it's a big problem, and you can't, solve all the problems, you can't take on all the problems, but there's something that you can do to bring about some kind of change in this society. So I would say to find an organization or something that you're passionate about, and then try to invest some of the energy in that. I guess that would be my call to action, is to find something that you can invest your time and energy in, because there's so much. If you're interested in the environment, there's a lot of things you can do in the environment. If just talking with people, and then everyone has a story, and I think that those stories are important. But like I tell my story, but I try to connect it with the social injustices in the society. So we tell stories, but I think that even that, sharing the story and learning from other people's story, because if you know somebody's story, it's hard to say, hey, them, or you would know the person better. Because I've learned, I met so many people on different levels, but once I know their story, we exchange story, it becomes a different relationship, because relationships are very, very, very important, very important. And I found that out the hard way when I got out of prison with my own children, about how important relationships are and how difficult they are, and how much you have to pay attention and listen to them, to their other people's stories, and connecting with that.
Thank you so much. So with that, there might have been a question that wasn't asked of you, but maybe you want to give kind of like that final message to the folks. Or whatever's in your heart to still say. Feel free to take this space to be able to say that.
Wow. Yeah. I would say that right now we're in a crisis situation. It's really, really critical. I don't know how many people are really tuned into the work that we have to do in order to change, to turn things around. I believe in, resistance. People ask you for violence. No, I believe in, in resistance, resisting the things that are going on in this society and in this world. But the only way we can do that is we have to be able to learn and read. One thing I'm wrestling with, though, is the social media. I mean, I see the positive part of it, but I also see that this algorithm that turns your mind and keeps you into that. And I haven't figured out how to break that, because I've been having conversations with some people that are really locked into that, and it's no amount of persuasion or proof or whatever it is. And I don't know how to do that. So I'm saying that young people and most people need to, read, learn the history, realize that nothing, emerges from a vacuum. Try to connect the dots, and to, because if you do that, then it's difficult for someone to penetrate, the organization, because COINTELPRO, the only way that they were able to penetrate the organization and set us, against each other and disrupt and discredit us, is because they were able to find a weakness in the organization. So be mindful that there are forces that are trying to move the pendulum back, not forward, and that's something. And there's so much deception that's around that we have to really pay attention to that, and and keep moving forward.
Yeah, and as a final question, what are you looking forward to? What is something that just makes you really happy and that gives you energy?
Well, let me say this, and it's not a plug. MILPA is an organization. After all the organizations I've been to, I've been around. I've been on several boards. MILPA is an organization that's different. I mean, for me, it's different. It reminds me of the '60s, and it doesn't. I mean, it reminds me in the sense of the cultural clothing of it. That we used to say, and I saw on one of the signs that it's color, culture, and consciousness, and I see consciousness. It's the culture and consciousness. So for me, it's almost like, except I'm in this older body, is that I've been transported into, something that I'm familiar with, and I like the way it's moving. I like the way it feels. and that gives me hope. Just moving about, seeing young people move, and also women, as I mentioned before. That's another dimension. So that gives me hope. And my children, they are complicated, but they are still moving. They're asking the question. They challenging, and you know, and I have a lot of children, so I have different personalities in that. But I'm able to talk to them now more than I have before, and share stories with them, and they're able to share stories, their stories with me as well. So they give me hope, because I know that this world is going to be theirs soon, and it's not going in the right direction. So I have to try to make a contribution as much as I can, so that they would have some of the tools to deal with it. You know, they're going to make their own mistakes. Like I say, we make our mistakes. We just try to make sure they don't make those same mistakes, but they're going to make their own mistakes. But at the same time, I have hope in seeing young people. It's not publicized, it's not on the news and stuff, it's always this other stuff. But there are people, young people, doing some fantastic, amazing work, and they need to be supported, you know, and help. And we can't let you know, other forces to disrupt that, because they're coming. You know, we just have to be ready when they get here. And so that gives me hope. Young people, and that's amazing for me.
Yeah, with that, thank you so much for joining us and for being here. Thank you.
Thank you all for inviting me. I really appreciate that, and this is part of my daily work. Thank you.
Oh, my heart. Thank you.
Consciousness and movement building MILPA. Cultivated change makers, yeah, we're that squad.